This is Impromptu with Washington Post Opinions. I'm Charles Lane. This week, we're bringing you something a little bit different. As many of us are getting ready to celebrate Thanksgiving and come together with our friends and family over a big meal and conversation, we gave our columnists an assignment. After a trying month for many people, what in this world, in the news and politics and our lives, are you grateful for? I'll be honest, it was not an easy assignment. Not everybody could find something positive to say right now, but a solid group of my colleagues did find some hope in the headlines.
Hi, this is Kate Cohen. I live in New York, but I'm in Virginia for the holiday. This year, I am grateful for one of the first times, maybe, for tradition. I don't really like the idea of tradition. It makes me very suspicious when someone says, well, that's the way we've always done it. That doesn't seem like a good reason to do anything. But this year, I have to admit that I sort of love the way that tradition can act as an autopilot that flies you in the right direction when you yourself aren't necessarily capable of it. Every year, my family, my parents and sisters and husbands and all our kids, we gather at my parents' house in Virginia, and we've done this for decades. And every year, I have wanted to do this. I didn't just do it because I did it the year before. I've been excited to be with everyone and cook for everyone. But this year, I seriously was not in the mood. I didn't want to, be with people. I didn't want to talk about politics, and I definitely didn't feel like celebrating. So we left for my parents' house the weekend before Thanksgiving because that's what we always do. Tradition pushed me against my wishes, against my immediate wishes, into the minivan and down I-81. Tradition brought me to my parents' house, to my parents. Tradition says it's the fourth Thursday in November. Okay, now feel gratitude. And the funny thing is, it's working. I will. I do.
I'm columnist Tether Long. This time of year always makes me think of that cheesy movie, Love Actually, and that opening scene in the airport where people are hugging each other and Hugh Grant says something like, "Whenever I get gloomy about the state of the world, I think about the arrivals gate at Heathrow Airport." Well, I don't personally hang out at the airport that often. When I get gloomy, I sometimes open my laptop or phone and I type in global poverty rate. The latest read is just under 10%. That's still too high, but it's pretty incredible when you think it was around 25% of the world's population living in extreme poverty when Love Actually came out in 2003. And if you go back even further, 70% of the world's population was considered living in poverty as recently as the 1890s. What all this means to me is we've made incredible progress in helping people in the most basic part of being human, wanting to survive, wanting to have enough to eat. And if you look around the world, there's just been tremendous progress, not just in China and India and Southeast Asia, but in Brazil and Mexico and Nigeria and Kenya. There's a great project where a photographer from Scandinavia has been going around the world taking pictures of middle-class families, what's considered middle class in different countries. And almost every photo, even in some of the poorest countries, shows a family, with a roof over their head, with a toothbrush, and with a cell phone. It may not be a smartphone, it may not be an electric toothbrush, but it just shows you how similar experiences are becoming around the world. I was in an Uber recently, and the driver from Bangladesh, when he heard that I do economics at the Post, he asked if I knew the Nobel Prize winner Mohammed Yunus, who was the founder of Grameen Bank that did all those microloans, giving small loans to people. He told me that family and friends of his had personally benefited from this model. It's a reminder that all of these small initiatives globally have resulted in hundreds of millions of people living better lives. So while I might not be hugging people at the airport, I'm going to think about the progress that we've made, and I hope the global poverty rate goes to 0 in my lifetime.
I'm Theodore Ted Johnson, and one of the things I'm most thankful for this Thanksgiving is in a nation as large and diverse and polarized as ours is, we were still able to hold free and fair elections at the local, state, and federal level. Hasn't always been that way. This is the end product of many, many years of people who were excluded from democracy demanding access to it. And it's the product of a nation that has abided by the outcomes of election results. I don't take these things for granted. I'm especially grateful and thankful for them, given our nation's history. We have excluded more people from the franchise than we have included. And the battle to be part of this democracy is something that even those who were denied it never gave up on. It's an optimism they carried with them that allowed the elections we see today, the democracy we have today, to exist. And thankful for the folks that came before us that made it all possible.
This is Molly Roberts, and I'm thinking about how a lost election, especially a total loss, where the popular vote doesn't even go your pick's way, can be isolating. Do that many people really feel like this? What am I missing? So I'm grateful for the communities at every level of my life that show me I'm very far from alone. That starts, unsurprisingly, at home. At the Thanksgiving table, politics aside, visits from relatives across the country are comforting reminders that closeness is about more than geography. Additional evidence of this truth. The internet, for all its flaws, the misinformation, the misogyny, the more general misanthropy that appears in hateful posts or harassing comments, all of which Elon Musk's X thrums with daily, still has an almost incredible ability to bring people together. I'm thinking about how easy it was to track down the best ramen in Osaka on my trip to Japan via a collection of noodle enthusiasts on Reddit, or to meet up in Tokyo with a high school friend I hadn't seen in years. I'm thinking of the people my mother, in her toast in my wedding, called my shadowy international cabal of video game friends, none of whom, because they are admittedly far-flung, I would ever have met without transatlantic fiber optic cables and Discord. And I'm thinking of how the last exodus from Twitter, now X, has made Blue Sky, an alternative app, the most vibrant it has ever been. A place to tell jokes and make memes without encountering AI-generated ads every fourth post, or visiting the bot farm every time you look at your mentions, but also a place to have serious conversations. Is it an echo chamber? Sometimes, sure, but other very important times, it's not. Back to that lost election. On Blue Sky and across the internet and on phone calls and podcasts and workplaces and even maybe at a few Thanksgiving tables, Democrats are having a spirited, sorely needed, and plenty controversial conversation about how to rebuild a winning coalition. The best kinds of communities tolerate dissent and trust in good faith. It makes you, well, me, feel a little better about losing, to know not just that so many others were knocked down too, but that we're working together to get up again.
This is Dana Milbank. After the disastrous election, I'm more grateful than ever for the escape that nature offers. Last week, a week in which Trump named a reality TV star as Secretary of Transportation and TV's Dr. Oz to run Medicare and Medicaid, I was in the woods where I spotted a young bald eagle in one of my trees and came upon a large flock of wild turkeys, cackling and squawking with delight that they had survived to see another Thanksgiving. There's not much to be grateful for in the political headlines of the moment, but I'm thankful that Trump has chosen a large number of truly inexperienced people to staff his cabinet and White House. Fox host Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, wrestling tycoon Linda McMahon at the Education Department, conspiracy gadflies Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. as, respectively, Director of National Intelligence and Secretary of Health, and a full lineup of Fox News regulars who will run the new administration. Given the destruction that Trump has planned, as the Post's Dan Bowles put it, his motivation is more about punishment and retribution than effectiveness. I am grateful that so many of his appointees are thoroughly unqualified for the high positions they will hold. It offers hope that Trump's second term, like his first, will see his most egregious abuses hobbled by incompetence.
We'll have more after the break.
Welcome back. This is Impromptu. I'm Shatty Hamid. And what I'm most thankful for is, well, America and American democracy. I mean that in a couple different ways. First, that despite the challenges of the past 8 years, we do live in a democracy, however flawed. And if anything, democracy has shown its resilience. I never much believed in the rhetoric about America turning into a dictatorship, and I don't believe it now, despite all the craziness of the Trump circus. This doesn't mean the next 4 years will be great. They probably won't be. But still, it could have been worse, perhaps much worse. If the election had been decided by tens of thousands of votes in a handful of states, the outcome would have been aggressively contested by either side, with each side calling the other illegitimate. Mass protests would have been likely. We might have entered a sustained period of uncertainty and genuine instability. So, this is what I'm thankful for. That the election results were not contested. That when Trump won, as frightening as that was for so many of us, Democrats did not question the legitimacy of the vote. When you've been defeated and your defeat is clear, it's important to accept that and to come to terms with it. Because only then can you learn what needs to be learned.
This is Amanda Ripley, and I am grateful for so many things that I had a hard time deciding what to say here. I'm also worried and saddened about many, many things. And what is amazing, right, is that we can hold all those things in our head at once. But I'll start with the small things. I am grateful for the turkey trot that I'm going to do with 10 friends and family members on Thursday morning in the shadow of the White House. I'm grateful for, the fact that Wicked is coming out as a movie. 2 movies, I think. That's awesome. I'm grateful for, the fact that MIT is giving free tuition to anyone whose family makes less than $200,000. And also MIT, by the way, has never given preference for legacy for people who have relatives who are alumni, which is awesome. I'm also grateful in the aftermath of the election that it feels like there is a tiny but growing movement of people who are starting to see that conflict entrepreneurs, people who inflame and incite division and contempt for their own purposes, they only thrive if we let them. If we are afraid of each other, if we don't know each other, then politicians can exploit us. If we mock and disdain one another, people we don't agree with, we are literally giving them what they want. I feel like more and more people are starting to realize that conflict entrepreneurs want us to feel frightened so they can promise safety, to feel aggrieved so they can whip up blame, to split the world into Republicans and Democrats, good and evil. And that every time we hesitate to comply, to give up on each other, we make ourselves stronger. We build our collective immune system so they can't so easily occupy our minds, even if they infiltrate our institutions. They can do a lot of damage. But what I hope more and more of us are starting to realize is that so can we, by giving them what they want. So each time we resist the urge to oversimplify and demonize and dismiss, each time we try again to understand each other, each time we start over anew, we starve them of their power. And I am really grateful that I know this and that so do many of you. My Instagram feed is crowded with people refusing to turn on each other, to abandon their neighbors, to assume they know millions and millions of other people they've never met. So I guess what I'm saying is I am grateful for the way that broken systems in the United States give rise to questions and the wild and the new, just when it seems impossible. Thanks for asking. Happy Thanksgiving.
This is Alexandra Petri, And as I think about Thanksgiving, here are some of the things I'm most grateful for. I'm grateful for the parts of the internet that still work. I'm grateful for every industry that hasn't been disrupted. I'm grateful that the wicked advertising onslaught may be nearing its end. I'm grateful that if I'm hearing from Matt Gaetz, it's because someone has purchased an unwanted cameo and sent it to me, not because he's the new Attorney General. I'm grateful for my family and my friends, especially for the family members who didn't give my preschooler a bugle for no reason. I didn't do anything to you. I'm grateful anytime I see art or writing that was drawn by a human hand and not generated by AI. I'm grateful that I myself have not yet been replaced by AI. And I'm thankful for bookstores and libraries. The new Barnes & Noble in DC is a thing of beauty and a joy forever. And I'm thankful for our readers. Yay, readers. Thanks for being you. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.
And that's a wrap. Let me just add my own little piece of gratitude. Today, I'm thankful for Thanksgiving itself. If you think about it, Thanksgiving is an odd sort of holiday for democracy. Democracy is all about the idea that people have a right to be unhappy with the way things are, and that they should speak up and try to change the status quo when they think it's justified. The word gratitude is not in our Constitution, though the word grievance is, right there in the First Amendment where it says we all have a right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. A sense of gratitude is closely related to a sense of perspective, and what we just heard from our commentators was, in one way or another, all about keeping what's going on today in perspective, putting their concerns in the context of things that have happened before, things that it's reasonable to expect in a fallen world, and frankly, a sense of things could be a lot worse. A sense of perspective is what President Abraham Lincoln meant to encourage when he set the precedent for our modern celebrations by proclaiming the final Thursday of November 1863 as a national day of Thanksgiving. The whole country was being torn apart by a horrible civil war, so Americans had every reason not to count their blessings. Lincoln nevertheless called on us to consider what he called, quote, the bounties which are so constantly enjoyed that we are prone to forget the source from which they come. We're the world's oldest constitutional democracy, and we dedicate a day to that purpose, that putting our grievances in perspective every year. Enjoy it. This episode was produced by Hadley Robinson, edited by Damir Marusic, Chris Sulentrop and Allison Michael, and mixed by Emma Munger. Chris Rucan designed our art. Special Thanksgiving thanks to Millie Mitra and Deirdre Byrne. Thank you for listening to Impromptu. What are you grateful for right now? Let us know at impromptu@washpost.com, and we hope you enjoy the holiday.